Probably the Greek.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. The Greek had things set up. I kept the American flag, but his face was in the upper corner, and I figured that might not fit with what we're doing here. But hello, everybody. How are you doing, Moon God?
Doing pretty good. It has been a little bit longer than I would have liked. You know, um, you had to very deftly avoid a hurricane, and I missed our last AMA due to being stuck in traffic. So, it's been fun back and forth kind of thing. But
Yeah, things
no,
happen. Things
got
happen.
a couple things to kind of go over and kind of give a little insight as to kind of what's going on and just kind of review some things with the trading bot and what's going on with it and
Yep.
why we're not like overarchingly making some crazy changes right away. Um,
Yes.
just to kind of hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak, or hear from the person involved versus just like text chat and be like, well, maybe I missed something or whatever.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. I liked
As
um
for
I, I liked what you said in Discord recently because obviously people were asking, when is the bot going to start making profit again and whatnot. And you kind of put it into perspective for everyone that for like 6 months or so, I think you said that ETH was trading within the $3,000 range,
yeah,
and it's been like 2.5 months that it's been below the $3,000 range. And so that's why
yes,
the bot hasn't been trading because it's totally DCA'd in the $3,000 range.
correct, yeah. And that's pretty much the best way to kind of put it is we had set up a range of about 3,000 to 4,000, which it was trading within that range for about 6 months, give or take a little bit. We had one or two instances where it like dropped out very quickly to like 29.50 or 29.79 or whatever it was, and then it popped right back up. So it was trading within that range for about roughly 6 months. It then roughly August 1st dropped out of that range, and hasn't recovered. And so that's basically been about 2.5. We're coming up on 3 months right now.
Yeah.
Um, but what I will say is that um, we're in a position here where this is, for lack of better terms, um, basically unprecedented. At least while we've been trading within the bot, and the reason why I say that is ETH is underperforming in the market by roughly about 20 to 23%. Um, Whereas like um, most other major blue chips are trading within about um, a 7% plus minus. So
Yeah.
that means that um, one could be trading at like Bitcoin. I think is trading roughly break even or a little bit above, like about a 1% up.
Yeah.
I believe BNB is trading about 2% up on the 90-day. So that kind of lets you know, like, hey, 90 days prior was just prior to the market kind of quote unquote crashing.
Yeah.
Uh, and we have a couple others where they're like, oh, it's 4% up. Dogecoin, I think, was up like 28% or something like that. Then there's a few others that are like down 3%, down 7%, down 4%, things like that. So I did make a post about it in the RayFi Discord, but I just wanted to review that with people and kind of go over that outside of Ton coin on Ton chain or Ton coin on Ton chain, however it's supposed to be said,
Yeah.
which is down 28% on the 90 days.
Yeah.
Um, because they're in their emission phase, I guess is what's going on with that. So they're like pumping out tokens.
Oh, wow.
Ethereum's the second lowest token. Trading, it was when I made the post, it was trading at down 25%
Yeah.
versus Coin, which was down 28%. So
Yeah.
it's just a weird position to kind of be in where Ethereum is so outside of the other top 10 non-stable coins in the market right now. It's just, yeah, it's not great.
Right. And so yeah, so I mean the good thing is we haven't lost any trades.
Yeah,
We're just kind of waiting for the price to come back up.
yeah,
So, it's easier to come back from not making profit than to come back from having lost a bunch of money. So,
correct. And that's the position that we're in. I think that's what a lot of people have a tendency to forget, is that being in the position that we're in right now, while we aren't, making money via the bot that we're using, it is a situation where we are still, holding on to all of our funds. So nothing has been lost. This isn't a situation where we expect this to continue forever. And Bob Backlund just showed up here. So
bring it,
we'll,
Cosmos. Is that their blockchain, Cosmos?
well, they use the Cosmos SDK. He is, I believe, part of the development team on the Prism blockchain.
Oh yeah, Prism. It's been
And
so long since I've heard about what they were
yeah,
doing.
we'll talk about that in just a minute here. But I just wanted to finish up with the bots really quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the concept, the idea, and everything behind it for us was we wanted to ensure that we were protecting assets in the case of something like this occurring. So a lot of other people within the the given trading of the market, the ups and downs associated with it, did lose a lot of funds as they didn't protect and hedge against any kind of like downward market trend. So for us, we wanted to make sure that we were protecting against that. We were in a much more I'm going to call it almost kind of like a step up trading platform where basically we had a certain range, and then as the bot moved above that range it would set a new range, and that's basically how we ended up in the position that we were in here. Is that unlike the previous bot, which likes up and down movement, we were more or less moving up and to the right. So we transitioned into a bot that traded within a range, and then when it went up and above that range, it would close out positions, and then it would open up a new range and make an adjustment based on that. And then when it falls below the range, it does what it does now, which is it uses the remaining funds to protect the assets that are at that higher valuation. Now, again, mind you, we weren't considering like any kind of a crazy pullback like the one that we had, where Ethereum effectively at one point in time within about a 60-day window went from about $4,000 all the way down to about $2,200, which is not something we were expecting in any way, shape, or form. But it's, sometimes it happens like that. But at the same time, we didn't lose a penny, while that was going on.
I was just going to ask, would the previous bot have gotten liquidated like over and over again?
It wouldn't have been liquidated over and over and over again. It just would have been a situation where it would have had to open up a hedged position. And that's, that's one of those things where I don't know if you guys remember, we were in that hedged position when we, unfortunately had a short open up right before the long took effect, or right before Ethereum skyrocketed from like, I think it was like 1700, which is what it was roughly trading around. And then it skyrocketed all the way up to like 3,000. We had to open up a hedge position for that. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, we had about 4 months there where we didn't really have anything going on. We were sitting and waiting as we started to offload some positions that were in profit.
Let me ask you this, because I think I remember it was a pretty stressful event for Yanni, because he was watching it pretty closely. Was it really stressful for you guys?
Yeah, we basically were in a position where we had a lot of like safety nets in place, but it was very much so a situation where there were a lot of sleepless nights for us, because
so
even with a lot of safety nets being there, if it blows beyond one of our positions that we're expecting in the wrong direction, it could have been very, very bad for us. But with this new setup that we have now, that we're in right now, that was never a risk. It never has been a risk. And that's why we did it, is that we wanted to be able to take advantage of the positions moving up and to the right. We thought Ethereum was going to probably cap out closer to about the mid 45 range. So about like the 44, 45, 46. And that's where about like the top end was going to kind of come into play, because that would have kept it in balance roughly with Bitcoin. But it never got up there, and it started to fall back and pull back when Bitcoin did. But that happens. That is the way it is. And again, we just weren't expecting Ethereum to settle in this range as long as it has. And that was kind of the big issue that we've had recently, is that Ethereum is drastically underperforming, and there isn't really a lot of markers to say why. It just kind of is, and that happens sometimes. But when it does end up recovering back up and bouncing back up, we saw, I believe it was like Friday of last week, or maybe it was like Monday or something like that, where we saw it spike back up to like 2750, 2770, right around there, and it outperformed Bitcoin 2 or 3 to 1. So like I think Bitcoin was up like 3 or 4%, and Ethereum was up like 9% or something like that, or 10%. So it's it got back up there, but it still wasn't enough to fully recover. But it went from being about 25% down on the 90-day marker to about 19% down, and then it's kind of re-leveled back up to about 22, 23%.
Well, so, and it's a sleeping giant. It's going to recover at some point, and yes, it's going to be crazy. Yeah. But the thing I was going to say about the last bot is, when you guys did come out of that that hedged position, you made like 20 or 30% in a month, 60% over 2 months, right?
Yeah, 60% over 2 months. The first month was 38%. The second month was roughly 22%. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not worth it, because all the sleepless nights is what I
I think Callie was sleeping about 4 hours a day. If that. So it was not a fun position for us to kind of be in there.
Yeah, I got you. I hear you.
We are looking at some options for on-chain usage, because that makes it a little bit easier, and Callie doesn't have to handhold it by himself as much, and then we can also provide a lot of on-chain data, which is what we're looking to do as well. So that's been a process we're kind of going through, looking into a couple of things like that. Mitch and X has actually asked recently about that. Mitch, he was like, "Hey, are you guys looking at like adjusting to doing some on-chain perp dexes?" And the answer to that is, yes, if they have the liquidity to be able to meet our needs. Because we don't want to be in a situation where there's a liquidity shortage, not from us, but from our, whatever DEX, perp DEX we happen to be on. We don't want there to be a liquidity shortage on there. And we also have to make sure that our connection points work and our bot works on that platform as well, too. And then, as Yanni just brought up there, perp DEX fees can be really stupid. So that's the other side of it as well, too, is that a lot of times they end up charging a much higher fee than like your standard, CEX. So yeah, it's just kind of something we're looking into, but it is something, that was asked, and I wanted to make sure that we kind of went over it, is that, yes, we're looking into it. We got to find the right thing. But yeah, that's kind of the mentality and the mindset behind it, is we want to make sure we're not paying an arm, leg, and a kidney for stuff. Because if we're able to do stuff on chain, but we're paying, 200% more in fees, because they're going to charge us 1% every, transaction or whatever it is, versus us being on, Bybit, which charges us like a quarter of a percent, we don't want to be there. So yeah, that's kind of the mentality that we have. Yeah, it's kind of wild. So yeah, that's kind of the bot trading side of things. Just wanted to, like I said, go over that briefly. Just kind of let people know that, like, hey, we're looking at this. We're not panicking. We're not in a position where we're like, oh, the sky is falling. We're just looking at it more like, hey, on the 90-day marker, Ethereum is drastically down compared to basically everything else that's out there. We're just going to sit and wait. And that's kind of the position that we're in. It's not the best position for us to be in, but it's a position where, again, we're safe on the downside, and it's only a winning opportunity as it kind of comes back up. So, excuse me. Yeah, that's kind of where we want to be. But yeah, I guess we can kind of move on to some other stuff real quick. As you might have seen, Bob posted about Cosmos, saying to come home, brothers. We are looking into IBC, and we're looking to work and do a couple of things with Prism Chain and see what we can kind of do to, to kind of fit a little more in line with being able to kind of extend our reach into multiple chains at once. We went with OPBNB because it had a couple of positives kind of going our direction. We could build things from the ground up. We could, be potentially a major player within the market. But from a couple of the communications that I've ended up having with a few of the major, what's the best way to kind of word this? A few of the major bridges, there's not a lot of activity or enough activity to warrant, like immediate access for a lot of things. And so it makes it much more difficult for us to transfer from one chain to the next. So an example of such is if we find something where farming is really, really prevalent on Arbitrum or Osmosis or, Cosmos chain or, a ton of other, various platforms that we'd like to partake in. Generally, we have to go from OPBNB to BNB and then from BNB to wherever else we want to go, generally using like either Axelar or some other kind of bridge to be able to, get the assets to the right place. So with that kind of being said, we kind of have made a few decisions to look into some other options. One of them, which is kind of at the top of our list, was IBC. Reached out to Bob, who is an absolutely fantastic person working with the Prism blockchain. He's done a lot through a couple of other discords. He's very, very good at what he does. A lot of information, and it's very much so a situation where one of the things that they're looking to do is kind of bridge the gap and bring additional projects, teams, and ecosystems over to the IBC side of things, Cosmos SDK, and allow people to be able to kind of fully, integrate themselves with other chains and, have kind of that cross communication. So with all of that kind of being said, the RayFi team is looking to kind of move that direction. We're still in the process of learning a lot about, the Cosmos side of things, how we can build stuff out. And their team has been absolutely fantastic with kind of helping us getting that learning process started. Now, what that does mean is that if we end up going that route, there is going to be a relaunch. We will basically be, for lack of better terms, our own layer one blockchain to a certain extent. Not in the same aspect, in the same sense that Vitruvio would be, but we would be, a blockchain that would be using the technology within the Prism side of things, who is basically considered like a layer zero blockchain, to bootstrap the backend infrastructure that we would need. So with all of that being said, we would still continue to provide all of the services, including the vaults that we have. The positive that we'd have on top of that as well is we'd also be able to provide vaults seamlessly to other chains without us having to end around a lot of stuff, which means any vaults on BNB would be drastically cheaper and airdropped without any kind of issue, i.e. 1, 3, and 4 token, no problem whatsoever there. And then even beyond that as well, as we look to expand out and provide tokens on other chains, we could very easily do that via bridges such as the Axelar bridge, Stargate, and other things like that, without us having to funnel through one given blockchain. So again, as I was talking about earlier, with us being on OPBNB, there's not a lot of bridges to allow us to go from like OPBNB to say Avalanche or Osmosis or Cosmos or, Arbitrum or anything like that. We have to go from OPBNB to BNB and then from BNB to the other chain. So it's a lot more expensive. So with the process of moving that direction, it allows us much more flexibility, and we can have tokens on 5 different chains provided at vaults at the same time. There are some other processes that we're in the works of getting set up. We are still going to have our decks as well too. We are working with that team to kind of learn this new system, learn this new setup, learn the new coding behind it, and get in the process of getting everything up and running. Instead of a Q4 release for any of our new products, we're looking much closer to like a Q1. The Prism Network did just launch their test net, and that is going swimmingly so far. I've been in there watching it. They've been launching their validators left, right, and center. It's been absolutely amazing. I myself have been, looking into rebuilding one of my older computers to be able to run a validator on there. If I can get that all set up and running and don't have any issues with that, that'd be a part of the RayFi ecosystem. I would just give that over to everybody. And that'd be another source for us to be able to, bring in some extra assets to the RayFi ecosystem.
Right.
So we're looking at quite a few things, and the positives with it drastically outweigh the negatives. It would also be something where we would either have the Prism token be our native gas token, or we would end up going gasless. So it'd be a situation where with our setup, it effectively would run with no gas fees that you'd have to worry about in the slightest. So again, I'm not saying this is like 100% set in stone. It's something where there's a lot of overhauls that we're going to have to do on our side. But it is something that we are definitely looking into. And the team is in the process of learning these new setups. And as I said, the Prism team has been, absolutely immensely helpful with this as well too, as we've been learning this new system, this new process. So, yeah, that's kind of the direction we're heading right now. We're kind of still just making some adjustments on our side so we can, set things up going forward for future use case and expansion and things like that we're looking to do. But yeah, that is the direction that we're kind of looking to head. It allows for a lot more freedom and flexibility. Still going to get the decks, still going to have a lot of things within our ecosystem, be layered on top of the RayFi token, which is still going to be the centerpiece behind everything that we're doing. And it would be a situation where even with any potential move to using the Cosmos SDK, the IBC side of things, it would absolutely be a situation where RayFi isn't going anywhere. So anyone that is still holding with us, anyone that eventually ends up being a part of that process, you will still, maintain your RayFi tokens, whether or not that's going to be, hey, you'll have the same tokens, or if we have to just relaunch and airdrop you some tokens, we'll do that as well. We'll let you know if that ends up being, a required case. But for now, we are just going to hunker down. We're going to find some better ways to be able to kind of up those returns a little bit more as the team is on the back end, just kind of learning some of these new processes with the Prism team. And as we start to kind of build some stuff out, and we think it's going to be a very, very big Q4 moving into Q1 at the end of this year, moving into the beginning of next year. So I just wanted to kind of let everybody know the team is in hunker down mode, which is why we haven't been posting as much. We haven't been doing a ton of announcements. I personally will be better about that, kind of giving you guys some updates as to what we go through. But I do want you to bear with us and understand that we are absolutely doing everything in our power, to continue to have this grow. And we believe moving in a direction that is exponentially growing, and moving to a platform and a process that will allow us to be drastically more flexible as an ecosystem and as a community. Across the board, it'll be a situation where we can do much, much better, with that flexibility in place. So again, not everything's set in stone. We're still working as hard as we can on you know, what we are doing on a day-to-day basis to increase the returns where we can. Obviously in a safe manner. We're not just gonna like degen, oh, there's some new project that's opening up on pink sale that's promising 100,000x returns. That's not going to be a thing. But we are looking at tried and true ways that we can actually farm, assets, bring them back to our current ecosystem, have them grow and go from there. And like I said, I'm even in the process of working on getting a validator set up. I've been in communication, like I said, with Bob, who's helping me through that process. I'm working on getting the hardware in place so I can just give that over to the RayFi ecosystem here, and we can just go that route with it as well. So if that ends up being a situation where we can get that all set up and get that running, we'll absolutely do so. But I just wanted to let everybody kind of know that, hey, we are working hard on this. We're working on expanding stuff. We've been in communication with a lot of different departments, teams, and projects and ecosystems within a bunch of different stuff. And this is all a situation where it's like we're trying to set a lot of stuff in motion. We've gotten feedback from you guys, our community, saying like, hey, what are we doing? What's going on? Is there marketing? Is there this? Is there that? And so for us, capital preservation, as Chappie just brought up, is extremely important for us right now. We're looking to do everything we can to just, hold on to everything that we've got within our ecosystem that's farming, and then expand out and do whatever we can with whatever we have available. So I just wanted to let everybody kind of know we're looking at expanding in a couple of different newer directions. But yeah, that long monologue for me. Sorry, Oliver.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It sounds like you guys are working on a lot of different things. Are you guys like able to give like the bot enough attention, or are you guys is that thing kind of just
So for right now, there isn't really a lot we can do to kind of change the course with that.
I
What we
got you.
have been doing, though, we're still reviewing all of the data that we're getting behind it as well, too. So
Okay.
I do want to go back and kind of touch base on that a little bit further because I didn't really explain it earlier. But the bot basically runs twofold processes at the same time. The first one is it's just standard trading. The second one is it continues to collect data and information that we can then go back and refine the bot, which is why every once in a while you see us do some updates on the bot. So while it's trading, it still collects the data of all the trades, the way the market moves, the ups and downs, so that way it can refine, and from there make better trades going forward. So it is a situation where it runs those two processes effectively at the same time. So it trades, it collects data, and then every once in a while, usually it's about once a month, we kind of collect all of that data, review the data, and make some changes based on that as well. So yeah, just in this instance, there's nothing we can really kind of change until we're out of a good chunk of these trades, because we don't want to make a change that's going to fundamentally adjust something and the bot just starts going like, let's just buy everything, go, and then it causes some problems. So yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys are definitely going into like a lot of stuff. You're talking about a DEX and an IBC, which is the blockchain technology that's like you can interact with every other blockchain or something like that.
Correct. Yeah. I believe with IBC and the way that the blockchain is currently set up over there, effectively you have access to, I think it's something like 400 plus chains or whatever the amount is. It's like it's some crazy amount. But the way that the process works is it's effectively an interconnected network. So as an example of such, let's say you're trying to we're this is the better example. like we're trying to communicate with each other. So I send you an email, right? That email goes from my computer to the server nearest to my house, and then from there it goes from the X server in Georgia, and then from Georgia it goes to Y server in Florida, and then from that Y server in Florida it goes to your place, and boom, you've got the email. Now, mind you, all that happens in fractions of a second. So
Right.
it would have already gotten there way faster than it would have been had had I just said it. But same basic premise here, with the
Right.
exception being that instead of it going server to server to server, that's blockchain to blockchain to blockchain. So like if you wanted to communicate with a blockchain, effectively the way that it works is it says, okay, so from the RayFi side of this, you want to connect to the Cosmos blockchain. So it goes RayFi to Prism, Prism to Dimension, Dimension to Osmosis, Osmosis to Cosmos. And it does that in a fraction of a second. Like,
Right.
not even a fraction of a second, like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. And again, that's all dependent on the way that some of these relays are kind of set up. But without getting too overly technical, that's kind of the best way to explain it. It's the interconnectivity of the internet, but within a blockchain. And so that process allows us to do things like say, oh, you want to trade, the Cosmos token on our DEX. We can effectively allow that to happen at the same time without having to necessarily have certain forms of liquidity on there as well too. We can bootstrap certain modules to allow us to have trading of the different DEX on ours. So it's cool stuff like that you can kind of do just on the fly without too much of an issue. But again, I don't want to get too technical with it. That's something we're still learning. It's a whole process we're going through on our side right now. So I don't want to dive too deep into something that's, a ways out, but I just wanted to kind of give the idea behind it, that it allows for easier communication from our system to other systems, which means that one, it expands out our farming methodologies, which allows us to say, oh, on the Dimension blockchain, which is another group of people that we've kind of, that I've been trying to kind of dig into, get a little more information. They're on the Cosmos SDK as well, too. The Dimension blockchain, well, they have the capacity to be able to farm at, 48% annually. And our strategies are farming at 37% annually. So we can just move that farming strategy from what we're doing on this blockchain over to that one. Super simple, easy. We just move the assets with the snap of a finger. But right now, the way that we have to do it is we have to go from OPBNB to BSC to then wherever else we want to go. And a lot of times those bridge fees are an arm, leg, and a kidney. But throughout the Cosmos SDK, throughout Axelar, things like that, Stargate, it's much, much faster, much, much cheaper, much, much easier. And that's kind of the idea and the mentality behind it, is that we wanted a faster, cheaper, and easier route to be able to farm better returns without any kind of issue, without any kind of trouble. And again, that includes the Binance Smart Chain as well, because they have connections to the Cosmos SDK.
Right.
Yep.
But
in fact, I actually did a test run on that the other day. I went to a Cosmos chain and was just like, oh, what if I decided I wanted to sell Atom and buy 4 token? Totally no problem. Can absolutely do so. Yeah. And so that's kind of why we're looking to go that route with it, is that for us, all we would have to do at that point in time is, we effectively have a contract that fires off, buys that, and then deposits the token. No problem. And because it's already on the Binance Smart Chain. So we're basically just handling all the gas, all the fees, all the everything within one contract, versus what we have to do now, which is calculate everything both on and off chain, because we have OPBNB and then BSC that we have to calculate for. So it's a whole thing that it's very convoluted. It's one of the reasons why we have to manually do that process right now. And we're looking to just, if we can, not do that anymore. And do it for a cheaper, a cheaper cost for us. And what that means is a cheaper cost for us translates into more funds remaining in the treasury, which means we can expand and do more, we can market more, we can do other stuff. Right now, we're basically, for lack of better terms, we're in that, that startup phase where we're kind of having to pinch some pennies. We're doing what we can. And with that being said, that's part of the reason why we're not, offloading certain tokens. We're hanging on to a lot more, other assets. It's why the team also hasn't, been doing any kind of payouts in USDT for ourselves. So like, as an example of such, the vested tokens that we have, we're getting our standard payouts for that. But the team hasn't taken a salary yet. We haven't paid ourselves anything other than our vested tokens. So normally the process like that for us would be is we'd actually liquidate those non-vested tokens. So part of the fee structure when everybody buys and sells goes to the team to help pay our salaries. Well, we're not taking that as of right now. So that's part of what we're doing, is to just kind of hold off on that. Again, like I said, we're kind of pinching pennies here and there. We knew that there was going to be a bit of a slide back on the price as those that received their tokens early on or were in the pink sale and got their tokens and then got the new airdropped version in RayFi that we're looking to get out. So we're just kind of at the moment right now where we're doing a little bit of rope-a-dope. We're taking a couple shots to the chin with the price kind of sliding back a little bit. But again, the team has realized that. And, as I said, we're not liquidating anything on our side. We're not taking any kind of payouts or anything like that. And it's a situation where we're doing what we have to do to ensure that you guys are at the forefront here. And when I say you guys, I mean our community. So I just wanted to kind of review that really quick as well and just let you guys know that, like, hey, there's a lot that we're doing to ensure that, like, yes, I know the chart does not look as pleasant as we'd like. There's a lot of downtrends, and we absolutely believe that as soon as ETH starts to pick up, the bot starts trading well again, it will be a situation where, kind of flip and go the other direction. And that's absolutely something that we're prepared to kind of just sit on that and wait until that happens. And, the other side of it is, we have the assets that are farming on chain, and we're doing what we can to kind of expand that in safe ways, but to kind of garner us a little more returns as well. So it's kind of a lot of things happening all at the same time. Lack of communication is my fault because I'm usually the one that puts out the announcements and communicates and everything like that across the board. So I take full responsibility for that. And I'm going to be better about that going forward. I do apologize for the lack of interaction. That's really my fault and nobody else's. So I do apologize for that.
It's all good. I mean, people understand. It's more just they're just waiting to see those returns start coming in.
Yep. So I do see Moonwolf asked the question. So if you do decide to introduce a new token, what sort of quantitative calculation will you apply? For example, if someone invested 10% of Prisma, how will you ensure that 10% value in a new token? So as a reminder, it is RayFi now. I don't want anyone to confuse us with the other Prisma project that's out there that does liquid staking that lost $12 million. I don't want somebody confusing us for them. No shots against them. That's part of the reason why we did the rebrand. As for the tokens, if this did end up being a situation where we had to relaunch 1-to-1, so it would work in the same way that we did before. So since we had like Prisma V1, RayFi V1, this in theory would be like RayFi V2 if we go that route with it. It would be like a RayFi V2 1-to-1 token. So like if you had 10,000 tokens, you'll get 10,000 tokens. If you had 50,000 tokens, 50,000 tokens. It'd be just dropped in the same way that the other one was dropped before as well too. It would just be on a different setup. So as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier before, it is something that we are looking into. It's just like we're touching on it. these are a couple of things that we're working on with an entirely different team. I don't want to go like too deep in the weeds about it. But it would be a situation where it'd just be 1-to-1. So, and I know I did kind of bring up the fact that if we did this process, and we're set up, it would be very similar to us being like effectively a layer one blockchain. Um, there would be no emission of RayFi tokens. We would still have the same amount of tokens. If we were to adjust that and change that amount to some other value, you would get the equitable 1-to-1. So, as an example of such, if we had 100 tokens and you had one token, and we went from 100 tokens to 1,000 tokens, you would now have 10 times the amount, which would be 10 tokens. So think about it in that aspect. It would be very similar to like a stock split within the market or like a reverse stock split. So in this case, we have 10 million tokens. If we went from 10 million to 100 million, if you had 100,000, you'd now have a million. You would still have the same percentage tokens. And that's if we adjusted the amount of tokens. I'm not saying that would happen. Again, that is a deep in the weeds future thing that we'll let you guys know if any of that even changes. But I just wanted to just quickly touch base on that all things in consideration, if nothing changes and we do end up making that move over and all of the tokenomics and everything remain the same. And what I mean in that aspect is the only thing that potentially could change would be like if we bump up the amount of tokens that are out there. But again, that is just for the sake of this example. That is not, I am not finalizing or saying anything in that aspect. That's just for the sake of the example that Moonwolf was asking about here. So it would be 1-to-1 or percentage to percentage. So like if you had 1%, you'd get 1%.
Yep, simple enough.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to go too crazy on it. It's a future thing. The team is still working with the Prism network, and we're still learning a lot of stuff. So this is not like hey, we're going to snap our fingers and next week that's going to be a thing. It's still something where we're having to do a lot of legwork on our side to make sure that everything within our setup is going to work. Connection points are going to work. There's a lot that the Prism network is still going through and getting up and running and everything as well too. And it's very much so a case where we're working kind of hand in hand. We have a dedicated collab channel where the RayFi team can work with the Prism team to learn more about this, to learn more about their ecosystem, to be able to kind of provide additional options within our side of things as well too, that will expand some of the functions that we already provide and help with additional revenue generation as well. So there's a lot of things that we're kind of working hand in hand with them to explore what we can provide with what our ecosystem already does, and some things that we were looking to integrate into our ecosystem as well. So this is all going to be a situation where there's a lot that's going on there. There's a lot that the Prism network brings to the table. We're very excited to kind of start working into figuring out a bit more as to how we can do that setup without having to have 500 of our own validators or anything like that. So again, they would provide a lot of that back-end validator infrastructure that we would need. They're helping us with learning the coding side of things. They're helping us with learning integration of modules and stuff like that, which is effectively like integrating a DEX into our system from an already created DEX. So we can basically just, instead of forking something and creating it, you basically just like snap a module, for lack of better terms, you basically just snap a module in, like, oh yeah, I want this attached on, boop, Lego piece on top. That's kind of how it works. So yeah. Cool stuff like that we're going through the process of learning, seeing if it's something that can fit in very well for us. And it's very much of a case where again, Nothing is finalized yet. We're working through a lot of this, but we'll give you guys some more information, as we kind of get deeper and deeper into this. But either way, we're going to be doing a lot of work Q4 for trying to bump up those farming strategies where we can. And then come Q1 of next year, we're going to hopefully have a lot in place already to kind of allow us to, finalize some of these learning processes, get a couple of things released, test net some stuff out, see if it works for us over there. And then if it all does go according to plan, hopefully it'll be something, if everything works out the way that we want, it'll be a Q1 thing, where we release somewhere at that time frame, so to speak. Now, again, still a lot of exploration needs to be done there. It's a lot of uncharted territory for us, but it's something where we feel it's a very positive next step in the right direction and what we're looking to do. But as I said, our big focus come the end of Q4 is we want to get those farming returns up. So by the end of Q4, we want to be back into really just kicking butt and taking names, having some big months of, some good, solid, safe returns, and really kind of go from there. So yeah, that is our big focus for the rest of this year as we're learning this new process. And then, come the beginning of next year, we will make any adjustments that we need to kind of make. So that's kind of the time frame. That's kind of the timeline. And I know it's a lot of me just been talking for like 30 minutes here, but
all right.
Appreciate all the questions and everything so far, guys.
Yep. Well, thank you for all the info, Moongod. I don't even know what to ask, man, but I think you were pretty thorough with saying what you guys are working on. And we're all just watching ETH closely because we want to see that bot start making some profit again.
Yep.
And we see the LP returns each week. It's trickling in.
Yep.
So LP farming returns. So we're all just waiting with bated breath.
Well, and that's the big thing about it as well too, is while some of the LP farming is trickling in, part of the reason why it's doing that as well, is because we also didn't have as many funds moved out, and it the process isn't as diversified as we wanted. In fact, we were we were in the process of diversifying out and kind of slowly pulling some funds out, when the market decided it wanted to just take a nosedive. So that was fun. But yes, that will continue to kind of happen. We're looking, like I said, at expanding some of those strategies and kind of going from there. But really our main focus for the rest of Q4 is we're trying to, do what we can to safely get those returns up. As I said, one of the things that we're looking into to just add on as well. And again, for anyone that thinks that you have to pay an arm, leg, and a kidney for a validator, to set up a validator node, you really don't have to. There's a lot of very much so easy, streamlined, very simple ways to do so. I'm literally taking, parts from my old computer, slapping it together, and I'm working on getting a validator node set up, with the Prism team to hopefully be a validator on their network. And then if all of that works and we have no issues and there's no problem with, with me setting up a node, it'd be a situation where that would become part of the RayFi ecosystem as well too. So that way, we have an additional source coming in. We're looking to expand where we can and add where we can as well. So I just wanted to, again, touch base on that. Our team is not, going silently into the night. We haven't vanished. We haven't disappeared. We've been quietly working on some stuff in the back end. So it's been a process. And I appreciate you guys being so patient with us. And we are absolutely pushing forward, and we're doing everything that we can to kind of like re-hone in on what we kind of want to get done for the rest of the year, which is juicing up those returns and getting those back to you guys. So that's our big focus. While the team is going to be learning some stuff on the side, going through and learning these new integration processes and things like that, our main focuses are team is going to be learning this new process, and we're going to be getting those returns up in whatever way we safely can. So just wanted to let you guys kind of, know that in case you get in at the end here and you're just looking for a quick recap. That's what we're looking to do.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, let me think. What was I? Yeah. All right. Well, all this and all the stuff you guys are working on is just like is going to be other sources of revenue. It's going to give you more options for LP farming. It's going to give you revenue from like the decks, and I guess, I mean, it'll give you opportunity to provide more tokens that people can get as rewards, which I guess can bring in more investors, but that's kind of an ancillary thing.
Well, yes and no. In terms of looking at it as an ancillary thing, to a certain extent, one of the positives with IBC and having connections in that aspect is that it allows us to go to another chain and very easily say, hey, you can provide your contract within this given setup here, and that allows you to be IBC compatible. And then once that happens, we can easily integrate that into a vault. With that being the case, that allows us to be able to easily and seamlessly set up this process where we can just layer on and attach on other tokens from any chain without any kind of an issue.
Right.
So we can very, very easily at that point in time say, hey, other project, other chain, other community, we understand that you're on Polygon, or you're Matic, or whatever it's called nowadays, or you're on Arbitrum, or you're on Osmosis, or you're on Solana, or whatever it may end up being. I don't know if Solana's connected or not, but the other ones for sure. It would be a situation where we can go to them and we can say, hey, come have a vault with us. Let your community, get in on, farming rewards and things like that we can very easily provide to you at no cost. It's very much so a situation where all they have to do is, come over here, buy our RayFi token, or the project as a whole could come over and buy the RayFi token, and then immediately we just buy back their tokens in the same way that you guys are set up with the 4 token vault. The positive and, in that situation versus kind of what we're in right now is that there's not a very simple, streamlined, interconnected process here for us setting up those vaults to other chains. So as I said earlier, it kind of all funnels through BSC, which is not great for us because there's no other connections that people are setting up.
Right.
So I've been in communication with a lot of those other ones, and they were as much as I love to say this, in the earlier communications that we were having, stuff was still in the works. Some of those have kind of been placed on pause as of right now, which is very unfortunate and frustrating for us. So unless Binance does anything on their own to kind of expand those network connections out, everything funnels through BSC, which is not great.
Right.
And with that being said, the big thing that we want to do on our side is we want to be able to have seamless interconnectivity with not just Binance Smart Chain, but all chains. And that really allows us to do a whole heck of a lot more. That allows us to be able to provide, farming on 15 different chains versus us having to go to just 1 or 2 chains, depending on how much things cost. On top of that as well, it means that for the fractions of a fraction of a penny that we have, in terms of cost, we can translate that over to, paying out all of those other ones. I'm sure you guys have noticed that 1 and 3 vault have not come about yet. The reason for that is there's no automated process that we can set up.
Right.
We attempted to do so, and due to the way that OPBNB communicates with Binance Smart Chain, there was no way for us to know this. going into it, it's basically always going to be a manual process.
Right.
And that is a situation where we had no idea going into that would end up being the case. And it is relatively expensive to do that. I think Blacksmith Forge brought it up in like a message in our general chat in the RayFi Discord at one point in time, where it's like he got paid out like 4 cents in 4 token or whatever it was, and it cost us 9 cents to pay him out or something. So it's just it's not where we want to be in the position that we're in here. We thought that there was going to be a lot more support, as some of these places had brought up the support that they were going to be bringing over, and we were expecting things to come out. And then upon reaching out to some of these other platforms that were talking about bringing things over, they basically were like, oh yeah, well, we're not doing that, but we'll update you, and like just pay attention to our notifications. And it's like, guys, you said you were coming this direction, so like what gives? But yeah, that's basically kind of one of the reasons that we're exploring some of these other options here. So IBC is effectively the Cosmos network. It's the internet of blockchains, basically the best way to kind of look at it. So basically you have a multitude of blockchains that are all connected to each other effectively in a spider web, where one connects to the next, which connects to the next, which connects to the next, and so on and so forth across the board. And that exposure is massive. I think all assets combined, it is about the same size as Ethereum, give or take just a little bit. Now, you have to keep in mind that's not just one. So you'll have like Cosmos, you'll have Osmosis, you'll have Dimension, you'll have, Prism Network, you'll have like 50 other, layer 1 blockchains that are effectively using the Cosmos SDK. But I think in total, their assets are way up there. I think if they weren't counted as their own separate things, if memory serves, they're one of the largest collective chains in existence, if not the largest. So, yeah, they're pretty massive. I don't know if Crash has a follow-up. So it is easier moving cross-chain, but it is also, again, an exposure thing as well, too. It allows us to be exposed to effectively anyone that is also using any form of connectivity through IBC. So I'm sure you've probably seen, even on Binance Smart Chain, you've seen something called AXL USDC or Axelar USDC. That is the IBC version of USDC. And that is effectively their cross-chain USDC, their cross-chain stablecoin, instead of just standard USDC. So that allows you to take AXL USDC and go to any chain that accepts AXL USDC without any kind of an issue. You can just move it from one chain to the next, no problem whatsoever. So it allows for a massive increase of interconnectivity, and that interconnectivity allows for a lot more exposure because you're able to communicate with all of these chains on the fly almost instantaneously. So yes, there is quite a bit of exposure, even compared to just standard BSC. So like as an example of such, BSC is its own isolated thing. It is one of the largest networks that's out there, but BSC is still its own thing, and you are, for lack of better terms, hearken to whatever goes on BSC. So if BSC starts to take a little bit of a slide, which I'm not saying it will, but if it starts to take a little bit of a slide, they don't do updates, that whatever it is, blah, 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 stuff happens. Or like what happened with us on the OPBNB side, which is, some other big players within the system that were setting up like bridges and things like that, just effectively abandoned OPBNB. It basically allows us to bypass something like that happening. It puts a lot more control in our hands, and it allows us to communicate with whatever networks we want to. As an example of such, and you can feel whatever way that you want about Do Kwon, but Terra, before it fell off a cliff, was one of the largest Cosmos SDK chains that was out there. It in fact may have been the largest one outside of maybe Cosmos, but there's a massive amount of exposure that can be, garnered by being on that network, or not necessarily Terra not necessarily like Terra Luna, but on the Cosmos SDK using IBC, it has a lot of reach. It's for lack of better terms, it's basically the way most people are going for interconnectivity. Like there's not anything out there that's close to it. It's pretty much the golden standard at this point in time for interconnectivity.
Oh, yeah. Well,
again, sorry for diving so deep there. It's been about an hour. do we want to just call it here before I spend the next 45 minutes going over everything we've been learning?
Yep. This was very thorough.
So just to kind of encapsulate everything again for anyone that's just joining us, our focus as a team here is on returns. All of the rest of Q4, we're going to work to get those returns up, and we're learning the processes associated to, the Prism network, IBC, the safety and security behind it, the processes for, setting up, effectively what would be our own layer 1 blockchain, within the RayFi ecosystem. And then from there, we're looking towards, if we're going to make an adjustment, it would be in Q1 of next year. But our major focus around this entire thing, and what I wanted to go over with everyone here today, is that we're going to work on safely doing everything that we can to get the returns up, to get larger payouts for you guys, our holders, while we're learning some of these new processes here. And so that is kind of like our two sides of focus. Side number one, we want to focus on getting returns up in a safe manner. That way we can bring more of those funds back to you guys, our holders. Side number two is we're learning about this new system, about this new process, and we are working on getting as much as we can kind of prepped and ready to go, working with the Prism Network team to kind of learn all about this. So that way, if we do end up going the direction in Q1, it'll be a situation where we can just hit the ground running, no problem whatsoever. But the main focus of everything is we are working on getting returns up in a safe manner, however we can, in Q4 here. That is our goal for the rest of October, November, and December. So I want you guys to know that this is not a situation where we're just going to be like, okay, wipe our hands. We're just going to, just shrug it off and go off and do some other stuff for the next 4 months. See you guys then. No, our goal is to review what we can, to come up with other, possibilities for, increasing revenue, rewards, and returns for you guys, our holders. And while we're doing that, we are going to be learning this new process. So it's going to be a situation where I'm sure people are going to have a lot of questions. We'll go over them as we can and to the best of our ability as time kind of goes on. But I just want to remind everybody that the core principles behind RayFi are not changing. We are still looking at getting those rewards and bringing them back to you guys, our holders. And then at the same time, we're learning a new system. And that's basically, I just wanted to give kind of everybody a taste of what's to come. But the main focus for us for the next, for the rest of this month and the next 2 months, as we kind of look into, this new system, is we want to get those rewards up to you guys, our holders. That is our focus. That is our goal. We're going to do what we can there. and that is our laser like focus, for the rest of this year. I just want to be clear there. Cool.
All right. Very good. Sorry, I had you on mute because my baby's making a bunch of noise.
Nah, you're good.
Yeah. Well, sounds good. We've been going for an hour and 5 minutes. So everybody, if you have any more questions, which I can't imagine anybody has any more questions, but because you've been so thorough. So,
Yep.
But anyways, we're always in Discord. You can always ask in there.
Yep.
All right, Moongod. Thank you
I
as
appreciate
always.
you taking the time with me today, Oliver.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. And I don't know when we'll do this again because it'll only be a week until the next month. So maybe we'll do this in another few weeks or something. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys later. And again, if you have any questions, as always, if you ask the question in the One Team Discord, just ping me. I don't have any issue with that. I'm never going to yell at anybody for doing so.
Yeah.
As long as you're not just spamming me. But yep, I'll talk to you guys later. Appreciate it, Oliver.
All right. Thanks, Moongod. See ya, and thank you everybody for hanging out with us. See ya.